This is a quick review for the concepts that were on the test on Friday. The difference in squares, difference in summing cubes, and factoring by grouping. Let's review real quick one example of each. If I have 144 x to the 10th minus 121 y to the 8th. Look at your variables. Is it even number power? If the answer is yes, then it's a perfect square. So, when you have two terms, and it's a difference, which means minus, for the variables, the powers are even, and for the numbers, most likely it will be a perfect square. In most cases, it will be a perfect square. But if not, we can check it with a calculator. So what you need to do is, you need to find the square root of everything you see. Coefficients and variables. Coefficients and variables. So you need to find the square root of 144. You need to find the square root of x to the 10th. You need to find out the square root of 121. You need to find out the square root of y to the 8th. Use a calculator if you can't factor with a tree. The square root of 144, plug it in the calculator, you should get a 12. 121, you should get 11. Now, variables. What is the square root of a variable? Basically, you're dividing the power by 2. So, the square root of x to the 10th is x to the 5th. Because you divided 10 by 2 and it gave you a 5. Same here. 8 divided by 2 is 4. This is y to the 4th. You go back to your problem and you prepare the first parenthesis. Keep the negative sign, no problem. Then copy the square roots. So, what was the square root of 144? Oh, it was a 12. So 12, what was the square root of x to the 10? X to the 5th. What was the square root of 121? 11. Y to the 8th. Y to the 4th. That's your first parenthesis. Now your second parenthesis is the same except for the negative sign. This time it's going to be a plus. Copy everything you see here. Everything you see here except with a plus sign. 12x to the 5th plus 11 y to the 4th. And that should be the difference in squares. Okay, let's do difference and sum of cubes. 27x to the 9th plus 125 y to the 27th. Okay, this time we're doing difference or sums of cubes. So this is a plus, so it's sums of cubes or sum of cubes. Okay, so cubes mean we're going to have to find the cubic root of the following terms. So you need to find the cubic root of 27. You need to find out the cubic root of x to the 9th. You need to find out the cubic root of 125. You need to find out the cubic root of y to the 27. I use big powers, a lot of variables to make it the hardest it could look like. Okay, so you can plug it in the calculator. The cubic root of 27 is 3, because 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. And cubic root of 125 is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 is 125. If you're not sure, plug it in the calculator. Let's look at the powers here. Since we're doing the cubic root, we're dividing the power by 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. So the cubic root of x to the 9th is x cubed. Again, we're doing the cubic root. We're dividing it by 3. So the cubic root of y to the power 27 is y to the power 9, because 27 divided by 3 is 9. You're dividing your power by 3. Now, let's apply the rule. The rule says it's a plus b times a squared, b squared. Always put your plus. If that's a plus, that's the opposite, so it will be a minus. And then you multiply the first and second, a and b. So, let's apply this with the numbers. You write down the cubic roots of the following terms with the same sign. So, the cubic root of 27 was 3. The cube root of x to the 9th was x cubed, plus the cubic root of 125 was 5. The cubic root of y to the 27th was y to the 9th. That's my first parenthesis. Then, your second parenthesis, put the plus, always a plus, no matter what. This sign is the opposite of the original sign. Opposites of the original sign. Okay, so if that was a plus, this guy is a minus. Now, look at this parenthesis. Focus only on this parenthesis. Okay? This first term here is the first parenthesis squared. So it's 3x cubed all squared. The second parenthesis is the second term all squared. So 5y to the 9th all squared. In the middle, you multiply both terms. So it's 3x cubed times 5y to the 9th. Now, we'll simplify. I'll copy this parenthesis as is. Okay. Now, let's simplify the second parenthesis. Okay. Now, you square everything inside that parenthesis. Square it. So 3 squared is a 9. X to the power 3 squared. That means you multiply the powers. You multiply the powers. It's going to give you x to the 6th. Keep your minus sign as is. Multiply everything here. So 3 times 5 is 15. And then x cubed y to the 9th. Keep your plus sign. Now let's square everything in here. 5 squared is 25. Y to the 9th squared, you multiply the power, is y to the 18th. Okay, let me apply the factor by grouping to the following polynomial. Okay, so we're going to divide my polynomial into 2. Okay, I'll factor this group, then I'll factor this group. So let's look at the both terms. X squared and x cubed, so the smallest is x squared. Now for the numbers, 3 and 4 do not have any common factors. Okay, so if I pull an x squared out of here, I'll be left with the 3x plus, I pulled the x squared out of here, so I'm left with the 4. Okay, now let's do the same thing here. Well, there's nothing common here, so I have nothing in common, so it stays the same. This is a very easy problem that was on the test. Now, I see the twins. Okay, so I will factor my twins out. So it's 3x plus 4. I'll be left out with the first parenthesis will have the x squared. Here, I have nothing, but that doesn't mean nothing. In math, it means I have 1. And that should be how you factor this polynomial.